Heyo, duckies and dice fiends. Welcome in. It is the Table Talk Show. I am Kay, one of your hosts. I am here with David, our other host, who is, you are on this side, I believe. David, who the heck is you and what the heck is we doing here?
I do not recall saying anyone was allowed caffeine. Next time, submit your order in triplicate. Submit your request. Anyway, no. Hi, I'm David. This is the chaotic, wholesome Tuesday Table Talk Show where we talk about TTRPG stuff, how to be a better player, how to be a better GM, how to be a better person, all with a focus on intersectionality and inclusivity so that everybody can have a good time.
As always, we are here every Tuesday doing this right here, right now, like you see. Thursday and Friday this week, we are going to be here streaming our first playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3. I think these are going to be our last two episodes. I think we're about to beat the game.
We might
be
there.
If you're avoiding spoilers, maybe avoid that, but and then Saturday, please join us at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. I think that's how math works. For Unlikely Heroes, I cannot tell you what the characters are going to be yet because we are revealing them in game, but we have done a session 0. We have seen how they work together. These are the most ridiculous characters. They should not work, and they do. Table is amazing. It is myself, David running production, Candace the Magnificent, Piper, Matt, improv and RPG, and Adam So Wizard is our GM. It is a Lord of the Rings inspired 5e 4-part campaign. Please come by. I get to play a character I've been trying to play for years. So that's going to be fun. But you are not here to hear about us. We have a very special guest today. Hector, who the heck is you and what the heck is you doing here?
Hi, my name is Hector Reyes, known as Okami throughout the internet. My pronouns are he, they. I am a TTRPG enthusiast, GM, game writer, actual play performer, and budding producer.
And very quickly, I'm going to interrupt you. Thank you, the transmissions, for the raid. Welcome on in, everyone. This is the Table Talk
Hi!
Show, and we're just learning who our special guest Hector is and what the heck he's up to.
Yes, hi. Like I said, my name is Hector, aka Okami, pronouns he, they. I am a TTRPG enthusiast, actual play performer, game designer, and a proud member of the Latine and LGBTQ community, and just general entertainer, working on trying to spread the word and make really cool art.
And so we're gonna talk because you are an old school gamer, as we were discussing
Yes.
in the green room before we started. You've been playing
Mm-hmm.
for quite a while. I won't say the date on air, the year on air. I will leave
Oh
that to
yeah,
you
it's
if
a
you
long time ago.
yeah, I will not call you out like that on air. But you are doing some really cool stuff. So we're going to talk about, some GMing stuff. We're going to talk about running games, especially games for stream.
Mhm.
But I really want to talk about you're doing something really cool that involves my dear friend Candace the Magnificent. So we clearly need to hear about that.
Yes. So since May, I have been working with Candace Magnificent, Madness Diamond, a whole plethora of other MCs, entertainers, people that, have volunteered to produce on a huge project. There's about 36 of us. We are running a West Marches inspired Thirsty Sword Lesbians campaign, actual play charity series for PCRF. The idea is to do it pre-recorded. We're going to start with a massive cast with opening ceremonies, and the way it's going to work is we're going to reach into the toolkit of Thirsty Sword Lesbians, and it's centered around a magical fencing tournament. And we're dealing with college age secret societies similar to like the Order or the was it 2001 Joshua Jackson political collegiate thriller The Skulls, uh
Ooh,
combined with Revolutionary Girl Utana, uh with magical fencing duels and with aspects of the infrastructure of the Society for Creative Anachronism. So we're talking about like secret societies, high intrigue, lots of romance, lots of queerness, lots of intensity, and a magical fencing tournament that will be the center of the plot. Every single episode is going to be centered around a round of the tournament, and some of your favorite players might get eliminated. Um, taking some inspiration from Castleton, an amazing Witcher's Tale, I believe the channel is, production. They're doing kind of Bridgerton meets Hunger Games. This is, like I said, Revolutionary Girl Utana meets like Saltburn or Elite. A little bit more mature, a little bit darker, but still surreal, good queer fun. And it's going to start off with myself, Candace, and several other MCs. We're going to introduce this massive cast of characters, and then as people get eliminated in the tournament using the PvP rules in the back of the Thirsty Sword Lesbians book to ramp up the intensity and the drama, we're just going to keep shrinking the rounds, shrinking the tables until there is one final table of 4 players at my table. Well, I will be narrating the end of this particular saga. Uh,
Can I just say that West March's Thirsty Sword Lesbians absolutely breaks my brain.
Well, so one of the things that they talked about, because I was around when everybody was online all at the same time during the play tests, and one of the things that I heard secondhand from people talking about Thirsty Sword Lesbians, back when it was first printed and there was a lot of hype about the Kickstarter, were these big, like, I heard about 30, 40 person Thirsty Sword Lesbian games that were going on people's private discords. And because the advancement it's very compact. Thirsty Sword Lesbians is typically meant, as suggested in the book, to be either a one shot or like a season, and then you take a break. So because the advancement is so self-contained, and there isn't like a big power creep to like your progression, it's very easy for people to just kind of drop in and drop out into different stories. Every time someone joins, you just establish a couple of relationship questions with the players that are currently at the table, and sometimes that includes players you haven't played with before. And you keep tying in and building, your connections with the people, your strings, your string advances, suddenly becoming much more important when you're dealing with a social group of upwards of 40 people.
Yeah.
Now, I wish I had enough people that volunteered to run 40 people. My goal was 50 at max, but we landed with 36.
Which is a lot of
Very,
people.
very close. Yeah.
That's a lot of people. Like it's
that
a ton of
is
people.
not a small number.
No, so like I made sure I was like, there's a total of 7 MCs. What we have on the books, and Diamond will tell you the truth, no tea, no shade. About 20 people signed up to help with production, and some of those people are the same people. That's how it is in the AP. And I will admit, this is my first project like this. I have never produced an AP before, but I have done West March's campaigns before. I love Thirsty Sword Lesbians. I've played Thirsty Sword Lesbians. I've run one shots of it. I've done the PPTA, so I just kind of bit off more than I probably can chew. However, I have a really great talent. Candace said yes.
And that's all you need, really. If
Right.
Candace says yes, you're
Candace, and we're just going to keep going. We've already extended the recording time once because the project has gotten a lot bigger, especially when it comes to editing. But that's what we're doing. Like, I really, really, I don't have a lot of money, and there's not a lot I can do, if I'm being very honest, for the situation in Gussa. So I was like, I can run a game, I can organize a bunch of people, and I need to do the thing. I have been wanting to do the thing. I've been wanting to launch my own channel since I started this, but I was very careful with myself for my own mental health, playing into other people's games. But now's the time. Enough people said yes, so I really, really want to do this right, raise this money, and share this art. And that is what the Rose Court Project is all about.
And I'm so glad that you jumped into an easy first production. Just ease your way in. Hey, DC, welcome on in. We were just discussing you in the green room and some of the great advice you give around TTRPG production and why everyone should follow your channel if that's a thing. I mean, people should just follow your channel in general.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But if TTRPG production is a thing you want, go watch DC Lucer.
Yes.
Produced it at Stars.
Yes, I will definitely take a look because there's just so much. There's so much to learn.
Yes.
Rose Court is I've had some really amazing artists, people that I knew from my podcasting days, just all decided to come up and were like, yeah, we'll play Thirsty Sword Lesbians. People who never played Thirsty Sword Lesbians. In fact, I did part 3 of session 0 for my table because scheduling is a ninth circle of hell demon to slay.
When you said 36 people, my first thought was, oh my god, the flow chart,
Calendar.
the murder board, the calendar. You had I would have to have an entire room dedicated to scheduling all those people.
Yeah, no, Google Sheets. Lots and lots of Google Sheets. And help from Diamond. So Diamond handles admin. I did a lot of but like once, so my format, I have to give kudos to the BIPOC Star Wars May the 4th fundraiser. That was the first time that I was like, okay, 11 MCs, 4 to 6 people per table, 2 days, and that's when the wheels started turning. That's when I was like, this is logistically possible. And it may even be logistically easier if there's one setting and one plot. And that is how I have gotten this far. That's how I have gotten here. That is how I've gotten my people. I was deeply inspired by the organizers and how they handled everything for that the May the 4th BIPOC fundraiser. It was just really well done. And so that's how I got the confidence to just be like, I can do this, you know, and I just have to like keep it all on one track, but bring everyone along. If there's one thing that I want people to take away from their participation in the Rose Court project, regardless of like how much money we raise, is the idea of community action, the idea that a bunch of people can come together and tell a story, share their art, have a good time, and contribute what labor they can for a good cause. I am just surprised that my like cruel intentions, you know, meets Revolutionary Girl Utena like game has just been interesting to so many people. But I felt like I pitched this to a channel and they said no. And I pitched this back in 2021. Like this document of the Rose Court has been sitting on my Google Drive for years.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't think anybody wants to play this. Because like nobody in my home group wanted to play it. Nobody in, at least in 2021, channel that I pitched it to, they were like, no, we're going to go with something else. And I'm like,
okay, I'm not saying everyone needs to go in the dumpster, but you need to find like one of those big dumpsters, like big, like not the ones you see outside the restaurant, like a big dumpster, and then you need to find a couple of strong guys, and then you need to take some of these people and throw them into the dumpster for being wrong.
It was weird because it was smaller. I wanted to do it with like 8 or 10 people. And it's still like, I think it was just like too daunting for the channel.
Well, and
they were like, this is a little too high concept.
Well, and, you know, tell the writers, we tell people where you get rejected a lot.
Yep.
You're gonna get, you're not like, there is, I have said this on stream before, but like, I've had people be like, oh, I've had people say like, oh, I can't ask Kay to be in a game because Kay is too busy. Kay got frustrated that Kay was not getting to play enough TTRPGs, was not getting into the tables Kay wanted to play. So Kay went, well, how hard would it be then to just run them on my own channel? And this is how this all started, was just someone going, well, if I can't get my fix, then I'll just go do it.
Yeah, like, you know, people will accept your pitches, but like there's just some pitches that are, and like, let me tell you, this actually, and I want to give credit where credit's due. Okay, because Nerds with Dice totally years later were like, let's do Rose Court. And that's when I wanted to do like the stripped down version, where I was like, let's do 10 players. Let's do them in and out. I was going to have NPCs. Like we were going to do like a bite-sized version of it. And I realized I want to do something bigger. And I don't want to put this all on one, like I want to do this myself, and I don't want to put it on one channel's shoulders because it's a lot to ask. Because when I saw the May the 4th fundraiser, I was like, oh, we just do a Discord community for the event and hyper focus. Like I saw how they built their community and use like the Discord interface. What I should have listened to was how to use Google Forms properly, because they are a godsend.
Yes, they are.
And I was coming at my Google Forms from an inventory perspective, like the Google Sheets and the scheduling, but I hadn't quite realized that I was just inviting people, like old school, like, hi.
Like, hey,
like,
what you doing?
Them.
But you do it in 15
hey,
minutes.
do you want to join? Here's the pitch. Like, it was very like, I don't know how to explain it. It was very like mid 2000s, like personable old people internet style, but with the
You went into
efficiency of,
Yahoo chat
but,
rooms and it was like,
but,
what's your ICQ?
but I was using Discord. I was using like, so like sometimes that kind of old school, like, especially if it's all people you know, I just got caught off guard by all the yeses. And
Mhm.
before I knew it, I was like, ooh, so like I like messaged, the folks over there, and I was just like, I really want to
Hey,
do
Lurking Writer.
this. Hey, I really want to do this. And are you okay? Like, I'll even do like a spin-off that's in the same universe, because I know that everybody has their channels and their schedules set up. And I might still do it. Like, I want to, because they've taken care of me, and really given me an opportunity. But but I'm just saying, like, before, when I first did this pitch,
Yeah.
it was too big of a bite, and I was like, oh, okay.
David, check G-chat. Rex said, this is how I'm going to end up starting a channel, isn't it? Like, yes, that's how I started a channel, was like, well, no one's doing quite what I want to do. And that's how I was like, I want to tell a story, a bite-sized, not a bite-sized, but a constrained story about redemption and figuring, and then I was like, well, I don't see a module, so I guess I'm going to write it, but I don't know the Forgotten Realms well enough. So I'm just going to homebrew an entire world and setting, and that became the God Plane, right? Like, that just happens. The Lurking Writer says, TTRPGs, it'll lead to fun times, meeting good people, and probably your own Twitch channel or podcast. You have been warned. Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. I tell you what, I kind of miss podcasting, because let's stay on subject. My bad. So do you have any questions about Rose Court you would like to know before we drift over to any other projects I'm going on? I want to satisfy y'all's curiosity and our audience's curiosity, because I was about to go off about podcasts.
I mean, I'm still wrapping my head around 36 people like that.
Okay, so 7 players. Yeah, so it's like,
hey.
Oh,
Welcome,
hi. Hello. Oh, hey, what's up? Yes, it is Keiichi Okami. So like, this is the setup, right? It's actually, I'll even pull up the document just so that I can like see it and have it in front of me, because
it's just a few things.
Okay, so Rose Court Project Rounds. So it was supposed to be 6 tables, so 6 MCs, myself, Candace, Baba Yaga, Callum, Laura Bard, and Tan Fighter. It's changed. We've had some people drop. We might switch some players around. So right now we've gone from 36 to, so we're at like 32 players. So the original idea was it was supposed to be like 6 at each table, and then it was going to go down to 4 at each table. And then it would go down to 4 tables with 4 players at each table. And then it would go down to myself and Candace with 4 people at each table, and then it would go down to me. And that is how it would go. So technically, for me, it's only 5 recordings, if you really think about it. With each recording being 4 hours. It's not. It's actually like, it's like, once we all like get it all in, it's gonna be way more hours. This is probably going to be a lot more episodes than I thought it was going to be. But I was so focused on, can we do the labor? I'm a very labor focused person, right? I was like, can we do the labor? Can we do the labor? The people that I have on my editing team have worked as paid professionals. They have done video and podcasting. They are people I trust. So I've kind of not been thinking about the editing and the hours.
Just like me.
Usually best. That's usually best with.
So I'm just like, do we have the labor? Do we have the spoons? Are we burning out? What matters to me is the timing and getting it down, because in my mind, once we make the art, we can take our time with post-production if we need to. Let's get the labor done, let's have a good time. And because like once that's done, once what's done is done, then we can just focus. Then, like whoever has experience with editing on the team, whether they were a player, whether they were in production, this is going to be a very open. It's like the old school theaters back in Elizabethan era.
Yeah.
I'm going to help with editing. Am I going to defer to Anthony, who has more experience? Absolutely. Am I going to defer to Goblin, who has more experience? Absolutely. But one of the things that I told a lot of the people that have volunteered their time was, please train. Like, I don't have the money to pay you. It says it in the pitch. But like, please train, because I don't want to burn anybody out. But I truly, truly believe in this project, and everybody that's been like on the editing, they're like, you do you. You let me know when the editing starts, and we'll put in some hours. So that is the best way I can explain it to you, David. It's just I have this chart, and as opposed to freaking out about people dropping, I'm just taking a breath and I'm like, I'm not worrying about it. That's less people at the table for you to focus on. And we will just either have people dramatically exit themselves out, or we'll just start having NPCs as champions and consorts. And I had to work that out, where I'm going to have an NPC champion and the consort is going to do support moves, which Thirsty Sword Lesbians as a system totally supports. Like, one of the things I love about the system is that the idea of the romanticized ideals of chivalry are
because men
really
men really cork that up.
Yeah,
men will ruin
really
everything.
Did. Well, like, I do historical reenactment for fun. I do the SCA and Ren Fair. So chivalry is like a super big deal in that subculture. And I've had to learn the hard way that, hey y'all, you do not have a historical idea of chivalry. You have a faux historical idea of chivalry. Your idea of chivalry was written by a bunch of Victorians in the 18th century who didn't understand that chivalry is supposed to be a military code. Because I'm a nerd, so like when I do nerd stuff, I like dive deep. And one of the great things about Thirsty Sword Lesbians is the way it just takes these very gendered historical themes and just turns them on their head completely. And I was just like, the cover art is a reference to Utena. Like, so I was like, my first big Thirsty Sword Lesbians project is gonna be Utena, Revolutionary Girl Utena send-up. I also want to be the change that I've called for. A lot of people over the years have been like, we should start doing our Monster Hearts games in college. And there's been a similar conversation in mainstream Hollywood about, hey, Gen Z are in college now or older. Like, why don't we have more entertainment, both for young people and for queer people, that is about college? Why are we constantly sexualizing and glorifying high school kids? And I don't want to
teenagers are gross. Full stop.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to infantilize teenagers or their, just say the wrong thing. But one of the things I wanted to do with Rose Quarry that I'm very clear about is collegiate age adults.
I love playing games about adults. I am so tired of this kid is going to save the world trope. To me, look, I'm the white person on this stream, so I could say it, y'all.
I got you.
To me, that is very, very rooted in white privilege, in that my childhood, I got to do everything except save the world. So therefore, all of my fantasy has to be my saving the world, because that is the thing that my childhood was missing. So let's put white privilege behind, and let's let kids be kids, and let's tell interesting stories where kids don't have to be the savior.
Yeah. And I go ahead, David. I got you.
Let's be real. When I was a kid, I remember being like 8 and looking around and going, "Oh, all of you, garbage." Every last. I hated kids when I was a kid, and I hated
Same.
being a kid. And then I hit like teenage levels, and I looked around. I was like, "Oh, you're all terrible," and I hated that too. So why in God's name would I ever want to go back?
I don't even know. Like, college is such an interesting time, and yeah, sure. Like, some of my send ups and inspirations for Rose Core are Cruel Intentions, but like, Cruel Intentions was a high school roommate of a French novel about adults and the French court. Let's be real. Like, a more accurate modern, update of Dangerous Liaisons is they did one in like that set in 1969, swinging 60s Paris, and that one was really good. But some of the best boarding school dramas are about Ivy League schools. Saltburn was a hit. Like, people were say what you want about it, people were obsessed. Brideshead Revisited, like, there's Maurice, like, there's all these like really great like queer stories. A Separate Piece, there's like all these stories, but most of them are not about high school people. They're about people in college or people who are past the age of majority. And I just wanted to kind of lean into that. Like, I love Elite. Elite is great. The fact that they're high school students kind of wigs me out. I'm like,
Like, I love Avatar: The Last Airbender, but I'm like, can we just set this later? Can they just not be kids?
You just
that
slap
would
10
actually
years
make
on that.
this
That'd
better.
be dope.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, it would be really, really
The lurking
cool.
writer says, this child is the chosen one, the prophesied one, who will end our woes and save the world when they're 62.
Look, I have been on board with doing like old man versions of things. Like an idea that I've held on to for years now is doing old man Conan. Like, you get Arnold Schwarzenegger, you rub him down with oil at like 70 years old and be like, "Oh man, you got to pick up the sword again." I think that would be like really compelling.
That is. I think it would be compelling. You got to be careful, right?
Yeah.
Because the second half, like, where you're just like, oh yeah, like, the oil part reads a little bit too much like Bubba Hotep.
Fair.
Look, Bubba Hotep.
It's right up there with Bubba Hotep, and like old Arnold Schwarzenegger in the furs,
right?
Like Conan,
like with the
king,
big sword. Yeah, right.
I would dig that with like a group of like young actors playing like new Hyborian heroes. Like, please give me that cheap popcorn, like, cash grab.
Look,
I'll
consume
throw away
the heck out of Vikings.
I'll throw away a Saturday night for that. That sounds like fun. But the oil on the abs, ooh, no. We're getting into Bubba Hotep and the She Vampires territory, and I don't know if I want to.
All I'm saying is I don't need another 14-year-old to get in the robot. Like I'm full up on 14-year-old gets in robot. Like I'm full up here.
I changed my mind. I was tempted by the chat, and then now I'm like totally getting rewarded.
Chat is Mimics and Misfits says, give me teachers in their final year before retirement, saving the world so they can go sit on a beach and finally relax.
I love that.
Lurking Writer says, new idea for a school/college setting. Have it all set up for the teenagers to be the main character protagonist, and then it turns out the janitor is the real hero.
Oh,
right?
There is a game called, it's called Pig Smoke. And it's an old PBTA game. It was like one of those like zine Kickstarters. I just need $1,000, like one of those. And cute little thing, and it was pretty much about playing faculty teachers at a magic school, and like depending on like which department that you were a teacher at depended on like what your powers were. So like if you were like if you wanted necromancy, you had to be like in the department of necromancy, like necromantic studies, and you could talk to ghosts and stuff. And it was pretty much all about putting up with like balancing your home drum life in like the local like magic town with your life as like faculty at this magic school with these reckless children constantly trying to go on adventures when you're just trying to teach them and having to protect the children from a dangerous work environment. So it's sort of like one part let's make fun of the magic school genre and one part let's make fun of upper academia.
Absolutely.
It was hilarious.
Yeah, when Strixhaven came out, I got invited to play in a game where we were going to play Strixhaven, and I was like I was, but I'm like, what age are we playing? Because like, I don't. It's TTRPGs, right? Someone's gonna catch feels for someone else. That's just how this is, and I don't want it to be a 14-year-old. Like that is just, I am too old for any of that. Like, it's not for me.
Yeah,
and again, I'm not saying it's bad, and I'm not saying like if that is your trope, go play that trope. Go have some. I consumed every single episode of The Owl House. It was amazing. But you know what I really want? And we won't get it because we know what Disney did to The Owl House. But you know what I really want?
Yeah.
I want them back at the school being teachers. I want the teachers looking at all these kids doing, like, that would be, like, was easily the best part of that. Easily.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that. Let's is amazing. Like, but
I loved Owl House. Like I remember I wanted to do like a Kids on Brooms inspired by Owl House,
right?
like a Portal Fantasy meets Magic School. Like would be really, really fun.
Working Writer says the history teacher has speak with dead as a cantrip.
That's what I was chuckling at earlier. I was like, I'm just gonna wait until Kay gets to it because that was
good.
just
It's so good.
Adult students exist. See now. We're gonna sidebar for just 2 seconds. So I dabbled in a long time ago when I was very young. In my early 20s, I had a friend who was an artist.
2 or 3 years ago.
2 or 3 years ago, right? No, I had this idea for Avalon Public, and I was like, where do you go for magic school if you don't have a bunch of inherited wealth? So I came up with the idea of Avalon Public, which was based on Boston Public, which is a very popular television show about public school teachers in the city of Boston. And I was just like, oh yeah, they go to Avalon Public. It's an American school in like somewhere in New England. And it was about all of these, like, it's the public school. And we just made a bunch of characters. We just like did a bunch of sketches. We riffed on a bunch of characters. And that's kind of like what the adult students exist makes me think of like Magic School Community College,
right? Because that's what I would want to play, is like, we're all not very good at magic, right?
Lighthearted is what you want. Have you seen Lighthearted? Okay, look up Lighthearted TTRPG. It is set in a community college. You play first year community college students who are majoring in magic, and it's set in the 1980s. It's John Hughes style romance and tropes, but you're all college age. And they also, when they did the Kickstarter, for the same reasons we're talking about now, they even say it in the book. They were like, look, your first year community college, the experience is very different because it's a lot of the same people you went to high school with. You're going to be there with older adults that are there for different reasons. And in this world, magic is like something you have to go to college for. And so I think you would love it. Okay, I think you should look it up. It has its own 80s soundtrack. All of the layout and the art
hope there's all the synthwave.
Oh yeah, it's all done in kind of like a synthwave, John Hughes Breakfast Club style. But like I said,
the cover art
is
great. They nailed it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this guy is great. Like I backed their Kickstarter. I got to play test some of the rules. It's super fun. But they had a whole section where I got to talk to the game writer, and he was like, romance is like a core central part of the John tropes, 80s tropes. And adults don't want to role play 15-year-olds kissing each other. It makes them uncomfortable,
As it should.
They were like, and as somebody who went to community college right after high school, I got where he was coming from. And Community, the TV show, kind of touches a bit on that, but marrying that with like 1980s,
80s,
super early 90s John Hughes, it's a really fun game.
Absolutely.
You get to declare your emotional state at the beginning of every scene, and that can directly impact your skill rolls and your magic checks.
I would just declare I'm a mess at every scene. No, but as we're talking about community college, I also love the idea of like graduate students, because graduate students can be any age.
I did Mage the Ascension in graduate school, but I ripped off of the magicians.
The thing that sort of changes is you have a lot more on your plate to juggle. And so, like, if I were building something new, I would be like, okay, so unlike the community college kids who, like, you know, flip burgers part-time and go to school part-time, like, you are a PhD candidate, and so you have to you have to teach classes and grade papers and do all the busy work. You have to do your own work, and also the world is on fire and you have to go save it.
Yeah, that's two different campaigns. I had a friend that went into a PhD program, and I got to watch like full close. The campaign of the scrappy magic users at community college, they are facing economic hardships. Depending on what your lines and veils are, they might face hardships involving like race, or, you know, because sometimes you'll go to a community college, and this is the reality, not necessarily, and it's kind of like fiction and reality mirroring each other. Sometimes you end up at community college with the skeezy older guy who's kind of a reactionary, and you have to put up with his opinions to get your degree. And that kind of happened with Chevy Chase's character and Chevy Chase in real life on the set of Community.
Oh yeah, Chevy Chase in real life.
And that right. So a community college magic game is going to have much different vibes than, say, a graduate school, high pressure PhD program. I would like to say that Rose Court is somewhere in the middle. We're talking about people that, and it gets there's a little bit more flavor with every table, because at some tables you're going to have the theater crew. My table, for example, is going to be an underground journalist scene. Another table is going to be a group of, you know, radicals who want to use this influence to create more equity in academia, and have it not just be in the hands of the wealthy and privileged. There's another household that is kind of being manipulated by time-traveling vampires, who are one of my antagonists.
Wait, did you say time-traveling vampires?
So I have two toxic powers, two bad guys, and I'm probably going to put out like a little play kit thing once the show's done so people can use them in their own games. So there's the student council, which is a send up of the student council from Revolutionary Girl Utna, and they are upper class, privileged, and are getting secret missives from a force called Ragnarok, which has convinced them that they can bring revolution to the world. They're delusional, they're narcissistic, but they're queer. But they're queer and multicultural, so and sexy. They give very big, oh no, they're hot, like energy.
Oh man, yeah.
And that's like one of the antagonists that the group has to do with. The other antagonists are called the Order of Kronos. And the Order of Kronos are inspired by the Tremere from Vampire the Masquerade, and a little bit of the True Bruja from older editions of Vampire the Masquerade. And they are time-traveling, occultist, blood magic practicing vampires who can time travel to any time that they have a clear memory of.
So, when you said time-traveling vampires, I immediately thought of a meme where somebody rolled out something, I think it was on Tumblr, where it's like the vampires not only use slang poorly, but they take slang from different eras and mash it together. And I was like, the time traveling is just gonna make that worse.
So this is the catch, like a little bit of like lore for my vampires. A couple of things about them. They can only go back to times they can clearly remember. And the problem is the older you get, the harder it becomes to hold on to memories. Which means
And like the late 70s, early 80s, completely obliterated because, you know, booger sugar.
Cocaine.
Just gone. Well, that's the thing. Some of the younger vampires are more dangerous because they can go back to times like the 80s and 70s and remember it more clearly, while more ancient vampires are like, what? I was asleep during the 80s. Did something happen? What's important? Who's Ronald Reagan? Like, it's a whole like they have to like coordinate. And they just want to win the tournament, because the tournament with it becomes like a powerful arcane force. Is what you get on winning the tournament. And I love my time traveling vampires. They are what we used to call daywalkers back in the day, going back to Blade fandom. And the reason why I made them that is because I love the idea that the vampires themselves fabricated the lie that they rotted or would be burned by the sun so that they could hide in plain sight and have fooled all of mankind.
Rex says the Blooderhood of the time traveling coffin.
Yeah. And I went kind of deep. Like I call them the Order of Kronos. It's a reference to Saturn, the father of the Titans, consuming the gods. And it's also a reference to the god of time, the Greek god of time, which is also the same person. So I was just like, time traveling vampires. It's also a nod to a series. Oh God, do you recall like Blood Feast? Proteus? There's like a list of like B-grade vampire movies from the 90s. That Proteus was like the name of one of them.
But
and it was like a whole series.
Not the John Carpenter ones, which are my favorites.
No, not those.
Because those were awful.
Those were awful. It might have been the John Carpenter ones.
I love them. But
John Carpenter's vampires is, it's something.
Yeah, and he made like 3 or 4, and they were all garbage. And I loved every last one of them.
We're kind of exploring like every kind of aspect of the collegiate experience because we have like enough tables and enough players. So we're just sort of firing through. I know it's a massive project.
I'm really glad that you have like enough space to explore the different aspects of it, because media portrays the college experience as like this pretty holistic thing. Like either you're like with the jocks or you're one of the people who's like working super hard, but there are such big dramatic differences in the collegiate experience depending on what you like. The frat sorority experience versus the non-frat sorority, like you said, like the theater kids versus like the normies, or like, and even within like even within like the clubs. Like I remember the anime kids, like the anime club. I wasn't cool enough to be in the anime club. But
you had an anime club?
It was my first experience with the anime club was a woman reciting the lyrics to the Final Fantasy Sephiroth song, like the Sephiroth theme song, and I was like, "You are too intense for me. This is too much for me."
I saw all of Trigun because of Anime Club. Okay, don't knock Anime Club, and I got to see it for free because we watched somebody else's DVDs. It was so great.
I have owned Trigun on DVD 3 separate times, and 3 separate times they have gone the way of the dodo for one reason or another. And I'm perfectly okay with that because I am excited to buy them all over again.
All over again.
Lurking Rider says, I was in Star Trek Club, but we called it the Chess Club to make it seem like we were cool.
Ooh,
oh my
woof.
Gosh. I would go.
Woof.
Ouch. Ouch. That is...
We did not have clubs at my college. You went to church.
Oof.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you can't. Now, while I did not have the traditional college experience, Kay absolutely did not have the traditional college. But like I said, I'm glad that you have like the space to explore. When I was in high school, it was still called Japanimation. Oh,
I can't
look,
even.
look,
I
Uh-huh.
I
can't
remember.
even.
Japanimation. I remember those days.
Japanimation. I can't even. I just like that's why my jaw hit the floor. I was like, I can't.
Yeah,
Like that
Pat
hurts. I
GPT.
remember
That
that.
hurts so much.
Mm-hmm.
that just dated me because I remember those days too.
Mm-hmm.
For real. So yeah, no, like I said, I'm doing this like big, like I even made a custom move where they can draw a sword out of the chest and use it as a weapon. Like I am not just a woo woo, kind of storyteller. I also love mechanics. I made a custom move. I want to make all these things available, but I want to get to the project first. The other day, somebody on Twitter hurt my feelings. They were like, you need to decide whether you want to be an actual play GM or a game designer. Pick a
No, you don't.
lane.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Nope.
That's a lie. Everyone in chat, that is a falsehood. Do not believe it.
Look,
Work on what you want.
I saw that and it really hurt my feelings because I was like, I have a few things published on Itch. So yeah, it hasn't been picked up by a big gaming company, but that doesn't mean I'm not a game designer. Should I not do this? It hurt my feelings.
Especially in the TTRPG space. And look, y'all, I have been very fortunate in that I have been able to work with some of the biggest names in the space. I am fortunate. A lot of it comes from my day job where I work in video games, right? So I have these connections, comes from being a journalist and forging these things. Like I got to interview the cast of Critical Role, and I am friends with people who are friends with the cast of Critical Role, and I know people who have been on Dimension 20, right? If you only do one thing in the TTRPG space, you have to be so incredibly good at it. And beyond that, you have to know how to market yourself, because this space, if you want to be really successful, especially like getting your foot in the door, it pays to be able to do some game design, run some games, do some production, know how to do some marketing. If you can cosplay or do good makeup or do something to make yourself, have a cool background, like all of those things contribute, because the number of times you're going to go into a meeting and they're going to say, no, we can't do that right now. But hey, this is kind of like this other thing we're doing. Can you, right? Those opportunities happen all the time in this industry. And if you are prepared to do it, if you can show like, no, I have done this thing, then they're going to remember. Even if you don't get the job right now, they're going to go, oh, this person could do X and Y. And the number of times people call back, especially if you come with recommendations, if people know you, if they've worked with you before. This is also why we say, don't be a jerk in this space. It is one thing to call out bad behavior. It is a completely different thing to badmouth people, to be a jerk, to be difficult to work with, right? Enforce your boundaries. But if your boundary is so restrictive that it's very difficult to work with you, you're not going to get much work, because there's other people.
Yeah, like I get it from like a mental health perspective. Like, don't put too many things on your plate. But like, I was like, excuse me, like, I only have so much time. And like, sometimes I feel like designing, and sometimes I feel like running an AP, and sometimes I feel like running a home game. And it shouldn't have to be like, I kind of have an attitude where it's interesting, because like the more I find that, like the more that I let go and the more that I'm like, it's about the project, it's about learning, it's about growing, and the less about, how do I say
okay,
this?
my plate has separators.
Yes, separators. It was just a little surprising.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, it was one of those things where you're just like walking through and you're being creative and you're talking to people and you're like, that's a problem? When is that a problem? Why are you making... Because it was on the wizard that's like being chained on the Colosseum. And I did it too. I'm not perfect. But I didn't like, I don't even remember what mine was. Mine was... I don't feel like it was that far. Like what they were talking about, like what they said, and I was like, oh, like
I have built my entire career out of being a jack of all trades, right? I roll up to a job interview and I'm like, here are all the things I can do. Like I literally look at the job listing and go like, what do they need most? And that's what I move to the top of my resume. because 17 years in this industry,
Yes.
I can do just about anything except for, now I can do some HTML coding, I can do some CSS editing, I can get around some very, very basic coding. I can't code. You don't want me to do your accounting. I am dyslexic. It will not end well.
No.
But outside of that, what I can run production, I can run audio, I can project manage, I can market, I can do graphics, I can do overlay.
Yeah.
Whatever you need done, I can do. And maybe I am not DC Lasser level of mind, like I can just build OBS with my eyes closed, right? I'm not that level, but I am a high enough proficiency at everything that I'm like, I can get the basics that are need done. And then when you need this polished up, give it to the person with more experience, but I can get most of it done and it will look good enough unless you're sending it to a publisher.
Right. It's so but I just kind of keep on trucking through. I just thought, we're talking, we're vibing, and I would just like that kind of caught me off guard. And talking loud, I love it. It's their jealousy talking.
That's what Rex said. This person's jealousy talking.
But yeah, I want to say that's the big meat, like the project that I have in front of me that is a large bite that I'm really excited about. And the other things that I have coming up that I have been working on that kind of snuck up on me. So much so that I'm halfway done with them. On Misadventurous League, I've been running my folklore punk fantasy powered by Wanderhome. And I'll keep it short because I'm primarily here for roast pork, but like this is Wanderhome, cute pastoral animal people. Last year, Nerds with Dice gave me a shot and let me run the North Star, which is like my own like homebrew setting. Land of Cagia, much more folklore punk. It's people instead of animals. Jade Dragon's homebrew magic rules that they put out on their Patreon. I incorporated those, and we did like a fun 4-episode miniseries. And my friends over at Misadventures League are letting me do a second series. Alexotica, Original Lotes from the original series came back playing their old characters.
Oh yeah.
And we brought in some new characters, some new players. Rosie, Theta, who else?
Sweet Rosie B. Rosie?
Sweet Rosie B. Rosie. Yep, Rosie's playing in it.
I love Rosie
Rosie
so
is
much.
such a great player. Steve from Pantsless Tables, who is fantastic. A really awesome, queer, inclusive channel based out of India. And Steve has been just killing it with these fundraisers. I've been in several, and I brought Steve on because I wanted Steve to try the Wanderhome system. And we just, we're about 3 episodes in. Finale will be on the 5th of October. And I've been having a really, really, really good time falling back in love with the Wanderhome system. PBDA derived from belonging outside belonging, no dice, no masters. Very, and, I'm doing my homebrew thing, right? And, we talk about, do you want to be an AP GM or do you want to be a game designer? And why that's why I'm kind of tying this project, because it just kind of hit me right in the nuts, because I was like, excuse my language, because that's what I'm doing.
Some people are into that. It's fine.
And that's what I've been doing for the past 2 Saturdays, right? This super homebrewed, has its own set, and I'm not doing anything more than people that do all the time with D&D, right? And I was just kind of like, oh, am I being too extra doing a custom setting in an successful indie game? No, I'm not. And to have somebody tweet that, and I'm just like, yeah, I worked really hard on this, and it's giving me a lot of joy. So sometimes it's surprising, because you're just like, well, would my art be better if I wasn't doing all of this home brewing and extra?
Look. Knowing your table is so important, and knowing the game mechanics well enough that you can adjust the game to your table and to the story you're trying to tell is invaluable as a GM, and it is almost impossible to do without breaking the game if you don't understand game design.
Right.
It's also important that you have several projects going, because the best way to be productive is to procrastinate doing the thing that you have to do by doing the thing you want to
Yes.
do.
Yes.
Now Kay is far more productive than I am by miles and miles and miles, or for our people who live outside the United States, kilometers. But the reason I get stuff done for Kay is because there are things that I need to be doing that I am putting off. Kay is like, hey, I need you to do this thing. And I'm like, listen, I got this to do. I got that to do. And then I look at those things and I'm like, I'm not going to do any of those things. And I'm going to work on this thing for Kay. I'm going to ignore that and create a disaster for myself later. It's great.
I actually have that and I have one of those. And it's the new white whale. Because like I'm very excited about Rose Court. Had the session 0 this morning. I'm really excited that Kay, you're fantastic. Just being like, tell me what you're working on. But I have the white whale, David, that you're talking about. But before I present that, I will tell you about something I actually finished.
Real quick, before you do,
I
want you to hear from Rex. Rex says, do not let that person make you small. That is them trying to keep you down. Do not let them.
I really appreciate it.
Cat GTP, we're so glad you're here from Ponies. Ponies was one of my favorite games to run. I'm so glad you're here.
Yes.
Procrastinators of the world unite tomorrow or whenever. Tell us your white whale.
So the finished thing, and then the white whale. The finished thing is, so next month on Queer XP will be, the graphics will be out soon. I know, because I'm the one doing them. I'm running Sleepaway for spooky season.
Ooh.
So, Queer XP podcast, all LGBT podcast, all indie games. Episodes drop on Mondays. We just started season 3, but later on in October when we start dropping episodes, I've already recorded it. I did a Sleepaway one shot that takes place at an LGBT summer camp program, and all of the players are like, once again, we had a whole conversation about it. Young adults, college-age adults, dealing with a shape-shifting monster, trying to get them while they're trying to be their amazing queer selves. And then what's supposed to be the queer, like, summer of their lives, like they've gone out of their way to, like, volunteer for this nonprofit and help all these, like, LGBT, like, children and children of LGBT parents have a nice family pride summer camp experience. And things go very dark and get very, very scary. And we have a really good time. And that'll be in October. Right now, season 3, we're dropping episodes of Moonlight on Roosevelt Beach, a really super queer noir game. And it's got Juicy Garland. Juicy Garland, the drag queen, is in it. And I just kind of, while we're talking, I just sort of, and I'm very proud that got done, because like everything, like Rose Court, Songs on the Wind, which is the powered by Wanderhome game that I'm doing at Misadventures, has been like, I've been just like juggling all that. I just finished Candela Obscura, or will be finishing Candela Obscura at Pantsless Tables. That's also ongoing, and that's on Sunday mornings, my time, Pacific time. And that's like I based it on Molly houses, which are like the queer, the precursors to gay bars, essentially, in Georgian London. And that game is like a mashup of Molly houses, New Fair, and it also deals with colonialism. I created my own custom setting, which is essentially Puerto Rico in the world of the Fairlands, called Borinque. And I've been collaborating with Araman, who is another GM based out of India, who created his own setting called Istapur for Candela Obscura and for Call of Cthulhu. And I got permission from him to allow my Indian players at the table to play characters that are from his custom setting that is inspired by South Asia. And so it's been this really great moment where myself and another person of color are kind of like exchanging notes. Like,
Yeah.
we've talked through Discord, we've talked through Twitter, we've both done stuff on the channel, and like I'm a guest there. Essentially, I'm an American. Yes, I'm Latino, but that is a South Asian Indian space, and they've really been kind to me. But it's also a queer space, so I've been very much at home there, and they want me to do a series 2 next year, and I'm really excited about that. But in the midst of all of this, just to give you like context for the white whale, the white whale is Wanderhome. It's actually Wanderhome because I've been rereading the rules because I'm doing my homebrew. That's what you do, right? When you're doing homebrew, you got to go back to the roots. I did a couple of home games with some personal friends because one of the things I like to do, GM tip, you are doing a streamed game and you really, really need to do something outside of session 0 to kind of polish your game. Do a home game with your friends. Do a home game with people that you trust, especially if you're doing a stream with like strangers or a one shot with people that you're only going to get to know at a session 0, or or even if you're familiar with everyone at the table, just to get your teeth into the system. Run a small home game at home. I ran right. What were you saying?
If you have the opportunity, get you a Cato, because Cato will break your entire game and entire session, and then you know how to deal with that when they get on stream.
Oh, what's a Cato?
Cato is one of our good friends and friend of the channel and supporter. Who is just the most like, I don't say chaos gremlin in like, look, he's lurking.
Hi, Cato.
Summoned. Cato is not a chaos gremlin in the like, but Cato's like, I'm limit testing. Hold on. Okay.
Yep.
Well, can I do this? And it's never in a malicious, I'm going to break your game. But Cato has broken. So my games are, my sessions and my setting are so much more robust and bulletproof because I'm like, what would Cato do? I have to build the entire hedge maze. If I say there's a hedge maze, Cato will go into it. So there has to be an entire hedge maze.
How does Cato deal with, oh gosh, what is it that game designers call it? Was it there's a fancy academic term for it, and it is a game term where something does not exist until the player declares it exists.
Yes, I know what that means. I know what you mean.
Like eschatological, like non-eschatological, like storytelling.
No.
And like Cato's style, great. And no, I there's nothing wrong. I'm curious as a GM how Cato's chaos style interacts with a world that is created completely on the fly and only in response to Cato's ideas. Because how that goes is going to be different than, say, somebody who lays out an entire map ahead of time and maybe just didn't think of something that he came up with. Because, like, there's a difference, right, between, like, oh, I didn't think of that, or I didn't think of anything at all. I'm just going to react. Because that's, like, two different
David can tell about the mines.
modes.
Oh, God, I forgot about the mines. But Cato, I have the pleasure and privilege of running a home game with Cato, and Cato has done things like took a one sentence flippant sarcastic thing, and that snowballed into, I had to build a new type of creature. I had to build 3 different branching storylines. I had to build 3 new locations. And I had to figure out how to tie them all back to the main story, all because I said something sarcastically, and he was like, I know this is a joke, but my character doesn't know this is a joke. We're going for it. And I've also had to, I built an entire new mechanic because he was like, hey, my character wants to do this thing and this unrelated thing at the same time. Let's go. And so it developed, like specifically, he has a dwarf that is a gladiator and has come to a new land to start a gladiator school, but also has an interest in cooking and food. So he wants to have a restaurant slash dojo. Well, no, a restaurant slash fight pit, culinary academy slash like gladiator school. And so I had to move all of all of the like main political hubs to the fight pit. And I had to build an entire new section of the city that's just like where all the fancy restaurants are. And like anybody who's been to Beverly Hills knows that there's you turn down a street and then there's just a row of fancy restaurants. And you know, lots of other cities have that, but I had to build that and so like the like little things that Cato does where it's like, oh, well, I want to do this and I want to do this, or you know, here is like one thing that I'm just going to like commit to, cascades into all of this like deeply enriching things. And it's also caused me to think about both GMing and world building differently. And so now in new things, because like Kay and I are working on a thing, I take all of those Catoisms and plug them into the new things that I am building to help flesh out the world. And it makes it like, you know, more now, of course, I got to come up with like, you know, 30 new NPCs and a bunch of other stuff, but
but they're there.
Oh
hey,
God, the stone
David,
columns.
Rex wants to know, what do spiders sound like when they talk? That was a Cato thing.
Wow.
So spiders became a major element in our campaign because an NPC sarcastically said, I don't know, go ask the spiders. So it ended up this whole thing about, can we speak to spiders? Can we speak to spiders? And then we go into a temple and David's like, yeah, there's 8 stone columns.
It was a mistake.
Cato's like, can I roll initiative?
Right. Because spiders have 8 legs.
Those columns are legs, aren't they? I'm going to go fight the spider.
Now, they didn't fight the temple. But do I have a stat block for the temple? Yes. Did I stop right then and build out an entire encounter for fighting a temple that comes to life? And build out the encounter where the temple doesn't come to life, he just thinks it's a tech.
Yep. Lurking Rider, that is an incredible exchange.
That is.
What does the Knight's column look like? What?
I cast Detect Thoughts on the school. Okay. I cast Message to the school so now it can respond. What does the school sound like, DM? Southern accent. I want some tacos. Do you want some tacos? How about some sushi?
Tacos and sushi.
But yes, having those people and having those, again, we talk about do all of these things because you become, if you just sit there and design games, you're not going to design very good games because people like me will sit here and go, okay, like, let me be clear, I'm not a min-maxer, but I'm like, I like bullshit and it looks like these two things will work together. Can I do this? And then you have Cato going, I'm going to speak to the spiders.
I would love to throw Dual Salt at Cato sometime with my not play-tested PBTA epic game that I put together because, like, that is pure nonsense. I took 4 different game systems and Frankensteined them together and then realized that I broke it and then I had to fix it. Like, I made a PBTA system and then I stitched on, like, I was like, oh, I like this. Oh, I like the advantage disadvantage from Glitter Hearts. We're going to throw that in there. That's cool. Oh, wait a minute. I love stunt dice from 7th Sea and from Exalted. And we're going to throw in there. Ooh, I really like Roll Keep, which is like D10s, but you only keep a certain number of D10s to get your modifier. So I like set it up and I was like, yeah, and I like was so excited that I was like, I've discovered game design. And then I realized, well, you have set it up so that if people picked a certain playbook and stacked enough modifiers, they can never lose. In fact, they will always win. And then I was like, this is not a problem.
Yeah,
this is a feature.
Yep,
And you
right.
know what I did? I made it so that every single time someone gets an extraordinary success, which is like 14 plus, the MC makes a hard move and they gain an XP. And I was like, and then now the way that game works, and that's the ultimate egg moment, right? Where you're like looking
Mm.
at a project and you're like, oh, that's how I fix that. Because you got to make the story matter. I realize the point of Dual Souled is to tell an epic narrative. I want people to get 14 pluses, but I also want people to get more than I want people to have sixes, but I also need to move the story forward. And if the arc gets to a point where they're always winning, then that means I need to change the engine so the bad guys are always moving, you
Yeah.
know, because then the game starts off being about your highs and your lows and learning from them until eventually you get to a point where you're godlike, but the
Mhm.
enemies you're dealing with are so powerful it doesn't matter that you get an extraordinary success every time. You're on another level, and that tells a narrative, right?
That
And
sounds very much like Never Stop Blowing Up.
it is, and I did it on accident, and it was because like I loved old White Wolf games. I love Seventh Sea. I loved Exalted. I love the idea of people's like descriptions having like a tactile, because I grew up in the days of like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 3.0, 3.5, where like the more flowering, the more interesting thing you were trying to do, the more negatives that you would pile onto your roll, to the point where it just wasn't it wasn't narratively worth it to do anything cool in
Yeah.
older
Yeah.
editions of Dungeons and Dragons, and even in some like White Wolf games or more games like GURPS, where everything is
Fucking
based on like
GURPS.
a pass fail or percentages. Like you hear what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and teenage me, like I wanted spice, I wanted excitement. But if you were gaming with people that were like very simulationists, they would penalize you
Yep.
for any
Mhm.
extra additional flourish that you added, when really all you wanted to do is like make the story more interesting.
Yeah.
So that's why I like failing forward. I know it's not for everybody. Sometimes I like to play more granular stuff. But when I want to play more granular stuff, I play more granular stuff. Like one of these days I'm gonna run Changeling the Dreaming 20th anniversary edition. But like I said, my white whale right now is Wanderhome. And funnily enough, it is the granularity. There are so many natures and traits and different places that you can visit. It really is deeply inspired by old school Renaissance. So even though I'm doing like Rose Court Project and kind of like doing, how do I take West Marches and this sort of indie style and like use it to tell a narrative and a story. And I think that's gonna be the next thing that I do. My next big project. I'm gonna do a big West Marches style wander home project with like a core cast and have other people just come in as guests and just have vibes. Have vibes, use the system to go to different places, use the system to create new traits, create new aesthetics options for people to choose for their own Wander Home games, and make a map. I want to build a map, and do little like I want to take, because I'm from the old school, but I'm also love the new school.
Mhm.
I'm an old man that likes like indie games, and I'm gonna reveal the big secret. I started playing TTRPGs in 1989.
Oh, wow.
I was 8 or 9 years old. My mother gave me the Dungeons and Dragons basic black box set with the red dragon on it. It had recipe cards on the inside that had a choose your own adventure, and it taught you all of the rules on how to play Dungeons and Dragons. And and now I'm here, and now I mean, this is my jam, right? Like I do both. You can do both. Um,
Absolutely.
I play D&D every other on Chaos Fridays over at Pantsless Stables, Dark Waters, Friday mornings. I know it sounds like I'm plugging a lot, but this is my life. Like I love this. I love even the stuff that isn't necessarily big. It all means something to me. Um, but you got to stay focused. Like I just had a moment earlier about, oh, this person on Twitter hurt my feelings. And if I could give anybody advice, like as a GM, is just really,
Oh.
oh,
Cat GTP. That Cat GTP said, I had the same, and all I ever got to do was solo play because no one around wanted to.
Oh,
I was a late in life TTRPGer. Those
mhm.
Most of you know this. I didn't get to play.
Yeah.
I got to play my first game. My first TTRPG was a first edition Pathfinder session.
Oh,
And it was shortly before the pandemic. I think we had 4 games before a lot happened.
4 tops.
4 tops.
It was, and again, like I've played 4 TTRPG sessions in person, total, my entire life. Everything I've done has been on stream because I got to play a little bit before the pandemic, but most of my TTRPG experience has been through the internet, through the pandemic. And I had an incident with a person who was more male than me, more beardy than me, older than me, who was like, well, why didn't you just, like, you could have played, why didn't you just go to your local game store? And I'm like, okay, so there's so many layers of why I couldn't do that.
Right.
Like, the number one was I couldn't get to it because I lived, as some of you know, I lived in the same town where Joe Exotic was a cop. It was half an hour to the nearest grocery store, and I was closer to a big cat rescue than the grocery store, okay? 2, I went to a Christian school, and Pokemon, X-Men, D&D, it was all banned because it was evil. So had I played D&D, right? And 2, if Baby K had rolled up into that local game store full of bearded 40-year-old men, would have looked at Baby K and gone, this isn't for you, right? I would not have had a place there. Especially not
Or
in
they
small
would
town
have
Texas.
welcomed you, and then you would have to call the
that's
cops.
the even worse. Yeah.
Yeah, I just like it's such a like it's a rough road. It is a rough road because the truth of the matter is I did not start seeing, as somebody who's older, I did not start seeing women in like really in games until Vampire got really popular when I was in high school. Like when I was 14, 15, 16 years old, that was when Vampire the Masquerade and all of the White Wolf games were getting bigger, and I started doing LARP, and that is when I really started gaming with women. My age, older, some of the older women had been around for a while, but they were always like, watch yourself. Because they had to put up with the worst stuff.
Yeah, and LARP definitely, not to say there isn't crossover, but the super like no, you're trying to do something cool so you get extra. We're here. We don't start in the tavern. We start in the dungeon, and you're gonna go and get treasure and a princess at the end. Those aren't the people who LARP. So that's where women and queer folks went to play TTRPGs, because you didn't have to deal with those people.
Yep. Yeah. But then, like, eventually we ran into like other problems. Like, I'll never forget an old Mind's Eye Theater journal where everybody used to like read about like LARP. One of this is, if your thought when you come to a vampire LARP is, I don't understand why everybody is standing around being like snarky to each other in Eurotrash accents. Why aren't we going off to go kill something? You might not be in the right game.
Yeah, you don't get it. Ooh.
You are in the wrong LARP, my friend. If you are wearing a trench coat playing a gangrel and that is your first thought out of character when you're just hanging out in Elysium where plot is happening around you, you're not a bad person. You just shouldn't be playing that game. You should be playing something that fills your spirit. You should be doing, I don't know. Like, there's so many amazing LARPs out there now, like Twin Mask, and it could have been there was no availability, right? The SCA is an expensive hobby, and we're mean to LARP people. Not everybody got involved in the Ren Fair, but there was definitely like,
and there's definitely dangers with LARP too, especially as a lady.
Yes, exactly. Like, oh my god, I feel like we can have a whole episode about like LARP and
we will get Salty Queer in here sometime to talk about their issues.
Like if you ever want to do like a historic, because I didn't mention this. See, I'm a lot, right? I'm kind of like a cake slice, but I've been LARPing since '94. So I was there for like the older White Wolf LARPs, and the problems that you're talking about, I believe you because I saw them.
Oh yeah.
But there's only so much a 14-year-old skinny gay kid. You've heard the stories though, and a lot of them are true.
all
And
about it. And like, I'm also like, I'm a very, like, I seem like very open to, like, I am a very defensive, like, protective of myself person, right? I am open person, but I'm like, I have control issues. I do. Got good reasons for it, right? But I'm like, I don't think I could LARP because I don't want to put myself physically in those situations. I can do that emotionally, you know, with people I trust or over the internet, but like in person, that feels very different. I'm also going to throw out, y'all, Adam, my GM for the Emergency Power Podcast, who is one of the best GMs I have ever had. Y'all, there's a session we recorded last night and I can't. Literally 3 of us were messaging after the session like, we have to take drugs to sleep tonight because we
oh
are
my
all
gosh.
buzzing. But Adam used to LARP, and Adam played like a pirate captain and made a pirate wheel shield out of a refrigerator door. And just some of the most, I don't know, David, if you saw their wedding photos, but like their wedding photos were low key. Like, Adam is incredible. And no, like, I love playing Emergency Power Podcast with Adam. It is amazing the care that they put into the maps that they make that no one sees except for us players.
Oh,
But they'll
really?
know it because it's a podcast.
Oh, yeah. We
right?
have that same thing with Queer XP. I'll just be like, Eric, why do you have this fancy ass map?
I'm really trying to encourage Adam so that we're recording our 4th and final season. And I'm like, Adam, like we've set up our Patreon. I'm like, can we put some of this on Patreon so if you just join, people can see it and we could
the maps on there.
Beautiful.
Like, remember this combat? And be like, oh my God. And people can run their own version of the encounter. You know,
because
nerds.
Adam hand makes these maps. And Adam is also an artist. So he was like, because it's a sci-fi setting, right? So they're like, there aren't any cars in Incarnate. I'm just going to go draw cars, and drew a bunch of different cars for Para to smash me with accidentally. I got pancaked by a car by a teammate.
Wow. That is incredible.
It was amazing. But yes, so I forgot how we got here. I'm going to be honest. I was like, I'm going to bring us back.
I was given the white whale.
Yes.
And the white whale is definitely like crunchy, hex crawl, West Marches, Wonderhome. I don't know why that's feeding me. Also, tangentially related to that, I don't know. I'm kind of a little fascinated by Root. Because I watched that video by was it People Make Games? The war gaming video. And I was like, and I found out like the secret origin of Root and like where it came from. And I'm just sort of like, huh. And I read some reviews, and then I had a friend, and I you know what you do when you're broke in the RPG space. I'm like, does anybody have an ash can? Like, I wasn't asking for like a free copy, but of course somebody in the space was like, here's all of it. I backed Kickstarter, and I was like, thank you. Like, because I don't have the money right now. And I am interested in building a setting. Okay, so there's this podcast called Unwoven. No, is it Unwoven? It's about building a setting by running different genres of games in that setting and doing the world building that way. So I'm kind of interested in like, what would it be like to create an original like animal folk setting using Humblewood, Root, and Wanderhome to represent like different phases of history. So you had, and this is one of the things, like Humblewood, adventure fantasy, Root, a time of war, Wanderhome, time of peace. And that is also intruding on the white whale as well.
DC says, I so want to run a game of Root, and Lurking Riders. Root is a system I would love to play.
Yes.
So yes, everyone's super into Root. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking about, because some of the lore that I have in my folklore punk setting in North Star talks about a war of 100 kings. I made my own war, kind of following the template in the Wanderhome core book. And I saw Root, and I was like, ooh, I wonder if I could use Root as like a prequel game. Uh, to kind of flesh out this setting of Kajia that I created when there was the War of 100 Kings. Because some people want to watch Miyazaki movie, and some people want to mainline A House of the Dragon. And who am I to deny them either
Right.
as ideas? So I don't know. That's kind of what my White Whale has turned into. I'm really excited, but once Rose Court is done, I think I'm gonna really deep dive into some the complicated lives of animal folk, and figure out how to put out a project with some cool folks that really gets to the heart of building community and making connections and traveling places without violence being the resolution, but violence being something that is dealt with, something that is faced. And that's another thing about a lot of my projects is, even with Rose Court, if I want to get to it, there's a big content warning on Rose Court. Rose Court is going to have things like classism. It's going to be dealing with gaslighting, mental manipulation, very dark, intense things, but we're getting everyone's buy-in. And that's what I'm really, really big in. And I want to make it, because sometimes people can feel boxed in. And, I have a lot of old school gaming friends that reject safety tools, but from a leftist perspective. And the leftist critique of safety tools is always, these are agreements on things we're not going to talk about. This is not a social contract for how to behave appropriately. Those are two separate things. And one of the things that I liked about the journeying tools in Wanderhome is that the journeying tools is a social contract. It's very much this is what we can do to make sure everybody at the table is respected, all the way down to getting up and walking away.
Yeah.
And I've kind of been listening to that leftist critique, ignoring the grognards, sticking with, knowing what I know about safety tools and how it's helped me. But also, I'm an old school White Wolf gamer, and I really feel like it's really important that we address these issues as people of color, as marginalized people, and tell stories about these things. I'm gonna quote a friend of mine. It's not that I don't want games with racism in it. It's that I don't want a game with racists. There's a difference.
Yeah.
If I want to tell stories about marginalized people leading revolutions, well, that story requires a fascist villain, in my opinion, right? And if there's a ban on fascism and the lines and veils, well, I guess we're not telling that story. No, there's nuance here. There's a difference. There's a difference. Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Yeah, I had a GM ask me I realized I want to build a world in a game in a setting where the patriarchy isn't a thing. Can you, and tried to recruit me and a couple other femmes to be let's build a world without patriarchy. And I'm number one, I don't even know. That is so, I don't know how I as a person, I don't know how to exist in a world without that, because I work in video games. I worked in .com. Everything I do has always been someone telling me, you don't belong here. And my saying, oh, really? Oh, girls can't do that? Okay. I don't know how to exist. And I don't know that I want to play characters who haven't had those struggles, because it is so core. I talk a lot about I'm ace, and I am on the non-binary spectrum, right? I'm not huge on the femme side of me. And part of it's well, how much of that is just my not being into this stuff? And how much of that is the old man at the family barbecue, the neighbor's family barbecue, that looked at me when I was 12 years old, saw that my hips had just come in and said, you're going to make good linebackers one day, right? I physically cannot untangle that. And it's not that someone making a gross comment to me as a child made me ace, but all of that factors in, and how do you pick it apart when it's,
it's all just sort of wrapped in together. You know, like there's all these different factors that kind of contribute, that make us who we are. And I think it's really important with all the stories that we tell. You know, I wanted to tell, like, especially with Rose Court, I want to tell like a really mature, lush, celebratory story about bad people doing bad things with hearts of gold, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like Thirsty Sword Lesbians is the place to be a messy queer and to tell these stories. You know, I know I talked a really big game about Wander Home and Sleepaway, but these are like very dark games if you look under the surface. Like Wander Home is about healing from trauma in the face of war, right? Like I'm not particularly interested in, and it's the same thing with Songs in the Wind. You know, like I homebrewed an entire setting because I wanted to lean into the tragedy. I wanted to lean into the sadness. And I also wanted to lean into the healing. You know, we need to heal, and we can't turn our faces away from these things. You know, we have to face these things because they're going to face us. And I really feel like telling stories and playing games is a way to cope with them, and just sanitizing. I don't
Right.
want to like call anybody out for their own trauma, but like just don't sanitize or don't
Right.
call for all of the stories to be sanitized.
Yeah, there's
It's
a big discussion on fan fiction sites right now about, like, it used to be I read something I shouldn't have and now I'm upset. And now it's you wrote something that made me upset and therefore it's bad.
Yeah.
That's a very
Like,
distinct twist. Sorry, David, I interrupted you.
so you would think that in playing these games that I would want to take a break from racism. And that's true. I wish I could take a break from racism. I can't, because it's in my DNA. And
Yeah.
it's like with the new PHB, where they're like, there are no halfsies anymore. And I'm like, the mixed experience is something that I think is integral to how I approach storytelling in TTRPGs. And I'll be the first person to say you do not need fantasy racism in your games. You don't.
Yeah.
You don't need
Yeah.
fantasy racism.
Mm-mm.
Does everything I build come with built-in fantasy racism? Yes, but there's a distinction, and I realize I haven't actually like said this out loud on the channel, but the people who are arguing that orcs aren't orcs anymore because they don't have a blank want a fantasy racism that is integral to the world, that is matter of fact, that is accepted. For me, I build in, because you can't have a perfect world. You can't have a world where there are no bad things happening, where there's no conflict. You got to make your world a little bit asshole. And the fantasy racism is one of the ways that that I do that, because I want my players and anybody who's watching to know, see this, when this person does this to this person, that's evil. That is a bad person.
Yeah.
Or that is someone who is ostensibly good that has a big blind spot, and they have to learn about that blind. Like it is an evil thing, not a commonly accepted thing.
Right.
And conversely, like I wasn't born a woman. I don't, as much as I read and hear about, like I can't ever like accurately represent a woman's struggles, but like I'm a huge fan of sex workers, and I think they should be protected. So in every single game I have, nothing like the orphans get got, okay? But if there is a brothel or there's any sort of like courtesans or whatever, they are perfectly fine. Nothing bad ever happens to them. People throw money at them and they don't have to do anything. Everything's great because
Everybody has boundaries.
Nothing bad will ever happen to them. But there is gonna be fantasy races.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't mean to talk over you. My bad.
No, I was gonna say, like, I've spent a lot of time like trying to explain to people that, like, I don't want a world, like I said, I don't want a world without the patriarchy. I don't know how to exist in that. I want a world where there is, consider that if everyone's on board and everyone has discussed it and we're all, because this is really important, but like I want a world where there are fascists and there are bigots and there are misogynists and there are racists, I don't want them to be the norm and I don't want them to be the heroes. I want these to be things that are overcome. And if you come to me and say, I want to play a character who is bad about this, I'm like, cool, that's a major flaw and we're going to work on it and address it, right? Like in Starfinder, I play the most disaster queer that ever did disaster queer. And I came into my GM and said, look, I am playing this character at the lowest, I'm starting the journey at the lowest point of their life. And I want it to go up from there, right? I want to come in and just bring, this character identifies as a natural disaster, right?
Ooh.
And it is so rewarding to me. Whereas, you know, if it's a perfect world and nothing's really bad, like, yes, you can still have really compelling and really interesting stories, no question. But for me, like, I have a certain amount of privilege, right? I am white. I am middle class, maybe upper middle class, who knows anymore, right? Oh, thank you so much for the subscription and the follow, Cat GP. We appreciate. Like, I want to, and I was a moderator. Those of you who don't know, I was a moderator for DeviantArt for 15 years. I wanted to, right? I wanted to, like, I want to make the world a little bit of a better place. And being able to overcome these forces that I can't overcome in real life, like, that is my power fantasy. I don't want to be able to do 2,000 points of damage in one round in D&D. I want to be able to slowly, painfully, over the course of many sessions, dismantle the evil corporation. That is my goal. That is my thing.
People play Animal Crossing to live the fantasy of being able to repay a debt in a reasonable amount of time.
Yep.
And we're talking about buy-in and consent. I play a horror game on Wednesdays. We had to take an 8-month break. We had an 8-month hiatus. I thought this game is gone. We came back. It was 2 different groups. It was one group pursuing the other. It was time to merge the groups. So they threw several of us had never played together, right? We'd been in the same Discord and we kind of knew each other's characters. We'd never met. We'd chatted, but we never played. First session back, 2 player characters died, one killing the other. And it was incredible. Everyone was on board, right? Because it was consent and because it was buy-in. And then a recent session, another player character killed by another player character, right? I finished that. I chatted with everyone, like, we had really great decompression. I jumped into another recording and I'm like, yeah, I just came out of a game where a player character died, killed by another player character. And they're like, are you okay? Do you need to sit down? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. It was awesome. Like, it was perfect for the plot. We were all on board. No one's mad. The person who needed the most consoling was the person who pulled the trigger to kill the other character, right? The person whose character died was like, yeah, that's what you should have done.
Wow.
So having these consent and having expectations and understanding, and part of what's so cool about this is we all know that we can look at each other and say, I'm not okay with this. Like, the character's probably still going to die, but the GM will make it a really meaningful death. And we have that level of trust. So yes, the drama, that game. Oh, it used to be streamed. I'm so sad it's not streamed anymore.
Oh.
But we have gone on for quite a bit. We are over time. So Hector,
all good.
Remind us again. You've got so many projects, but let's speed run the big ones. Where to find you and all of that good
you
stuff.
can find me at Keiichi Okami on Twitter. We Fridays, Dark Waters on Pansel's Tables. Saturdays, Misadventurers League, Songs on the Wind. Sundays, Circle of Hither and Yon, Candela Obscura. And I will continue posting about the amazing Project Rose Court, West Marches, Thirsty Sword Lesbians. It's gonna, like I said, gonna be a charity AP. Gonna be for PCRF, pre-recorded. Hopefully, we're gonna start dropping episodes in October before Big Bad Con.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing, like, not just tips, not just your story, but like also some vulnerability, because that's really awesome. And I'm gonna just take a moment to say, like, if you have a desire to create, if you want to create, go create and go share what you're doing, because you don't know and will probably never know how many people it impacts. And I say that because I'm going to embarrass you a little bit, Hector, and I'm sorry, but we hopped into the green room and one of the first things Hector said was like, thank you for making that video about converting like your videos to OBS and how you do that. Cause I needed that and that helped. Didn't know I didn't know that was any kind of help to you. So And then the idea that that helped give you the legs and some tools to get started on all of these other things, like, you don't know how many ripples you can do. So if you want to do a thing, go do it. And if a channel tells you, no, we don't want to do that, it's too ambitious, it's too big, go do it somewhere else. If you want to create, go create. Lurking Writer says, thank you, Hector. This was absolutely fascinating and sparked so much inspiration. And thanks as always to Kay and David. Cheers to all in chat for collaborating. Yes, Cat GTP, that was task I learned to stream it. Yes, it is always the most difficult one. Chat, you've been amazing. I'm sorry I didn't read off as many comments as I usually do. We had a lot to talk about though.
Yeah,
I hope you understand they were read and they were appreciated. David, who the heck is you and what the heck has we been doing here?
I forgot to schedule a TTRPG thing because the first boss of TTRPGs is scheduling, and this time I'm the one who rolled the one. But no. Hi, I'm David. This is the Chaotic Wholesome Table Talk Show, where every week we talk about TTRPG stuff, how to be a better player, how to be a better GM, how to check out super cool people who are running things that are really interesting, how to be a better person, all with a focus on intersectionality and inclusivity so that everybody can have a good time.
And as always, find us here every Tuesday for the Table Talk Show, where we do stuff like this with awesome people. Next week, we're going to talk to Adam's the Wizard about Unlikely Heroes. So next week, you will have, hopefully, seen the first episode, know these weirdo characters. Literally, the tagline is it's like Lord of the Rings, but with weirdos. So come meet our weirdo characters, right?
Yes.
They're wonderful. And then you can learn about Adam's inspirations and more about our characters because, I've been wanting to play this character for years. Tuesday and, Thursday and Friday, Dave and I are going to be streaming Baldur's Gate, probably our last one. And then I think we're going to be playing Odd Sparks together after that. And, y'all, I've got just an absolute bajillion things going on, but none of them are out yet and announced, so I can't talk about them yet. But I just got incredible artwork for one of them, so
yeah,
it's gonna be
world-class
good. It's gonna be
artwork.
real good.
It always feels good to get art for a new character.
It's not a new character; it's an
But,
old character.
Oh, upgrade art is the best.
It is. I have a character who began in 5e, moved into Urban Shadows, and is now going to be in Starfinder. And it is the same character, and it is not different incarnations. It is this character has lived through all of these settings and timelines, and it has been explained. Yeah, MLP win. So, look, Cat GTP, love My Little Pony, and I need to run it again. That system is so robust that, like, running anything other than a pre-made module, I need to spend so much more time, and I am moving, so I cannot spend the time with the book that I, in fact,
So Kay is going to move, and then we're going to be running the game a week after that.
Actually, what needs to happen is I need to find someone who is super into that system and run it for me, because I ran it last time and I wouldn't be a pony. We should get Pan to play too. Pan is always down for pony. But
I just thought
we
of like
are
3 different people that could possibly run that.
Oh,
yeah, 4.
Imagine that we
got people
know
to-
some
to ask.
producers.
Yeah, right.
oh,
We know some people who can run production.
oh.
We have a paid Zoom account and live captions.
Oh my goodness.
But all right. We are going to go say hello to Cypher of Tyr, who is playing Baldur's Gate 3. I don't even know how many playthroughs she's had at this point, but go say hello, go be kind. And thank you, as always, for spending your evening with us, chat. You were amazing. You kept us laughing, and you are brilliant, insightful, and so kind. And thank you for being everything that I want out of my gaming community. You make it worth it. So thank you all. My cat is screaming, so it's definitely time to go. Be kind to yourself, be excellent to others, and we will see you next time. Yes, Jareth.